I say howdy, but I'm from the south, as in the southern hemisphere. So I'll say g'day. So what I'm going to talk about today is, and also I got a present from A&M, my first ever laser pointer. It's my new shiny toy. I'm going to be using it a lot during my talk today. What I'm going to talk about is some of the lessons that I've learned about science communication over the last couple of years that I've been doing climate communication. And I will preface it by saying that the lessons I've learned are no credit at all to me. I often learned them kicking and screaming and resisting them all the way until finally I had no choice but to take on a lot of these best practices. So I started the website Skeptical Science in 2007, and as I was explaining to some students earlier today, they were asking me how it all happened. It happened actually from getting into fights with my father. He would throw these myths about money. At that time, not really knowing much about it, I would go back and research them and look at the primary scientific research on a lot of these arguments, a lot of these talking points, and found that actually my father-in-law was kind of wrong about a lot of this stuff. And so I anticipating the next family get-together and being very strongly motivated to not lose the next argument with my father-in-law, I started building a database of all the most common myths about climate change and what the science said about all the relevant peer-reviewed research. And eventually I realized other people have annoying relatives and they get excited about climate change, so they might find this useful as well. So I started putting all that content online in the form of Skeptical Science. And when I started the site, each page debunked differently. And this is what the debunking looked like at the beginning. I would start with the heading, speak of the myth, then I would have a more detailed version of the myth, and then a long, detailed debunking of the myth, explaining the peer-reviewed science, linking to the relevant research, using graphics, visuals. And one day I got an email from someone saying, these debunkings are really great, but could you put a little paragraph summary at the top so we don't have to do the whole thing? And I replied, well, I spent all this effort writing the damn thing, so you can read it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, wow, I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. If have the saying go, 100 won't come to the mountain of data, then the mountain of data will go to 100. And so I went through, at that time we were about 50 files, and I added a little paragraph summary at the top of each one of them. And after writing 50 of these, I was feeling a bit proud of myself for going through that effort. And then I got an email from someone else, a physicist from Canada, who emailed me and said, these paragraph summaries are really good. Could you also provide a one-line summary? And I emailed him, and this time I was a little bit crankier, and I said, no, that's actually not possible to provide one-line summaries of science. It's too complicated. It was and then rather sarcastically I said, but you want to have a go at doing it yourself? Be my guest. And I thought, okay, well that's the end. And then a few weeks later, I got another email from this guy. This time the email had a word attachment. And he said, I've just finished summarizing all your rebuttals, and I've got this one-line summary. So I somewhat skeptically opened up the Word document and started reading through each one of them. And thought, actually, that's I thought the same way. It's pretty good. And the funny thing was, at that same time, I was corresponding with a computer programmer from Sydney who was working on a Twitter bot. And I think it was a screenshot of the time. It was a Twitter bot that automatically detected myths, climate myths on Twitter, and then posted an automated response. And so I emailed him this Word document. Guys, just written all these one-line responses to all the most common myths about climate change. Might this possibly be of use to you? And he emailed back, having looked at the Word document, and said, these look great, but can you get them down to 140 characters? So over the years I've been doing skeptical science, people will email me advice like this on how to do the job better. And one day someone emailed me a link to a blog post by Gavin Schmidt, and Gavin was suggesting that what we need to do as science communicators is communicate our science at multiple levels, because there are multiple audiences. The audience isn't one single homogeneous segment. It's lots of different people at different levels of understanding and different levels of engagement. And so he suggested using the analogy of a ski slope, that we need to consider writing our science communication at beginner, say intermediate and advanced levels to make it more accessible to different groups. And so someone, this was a physicist again, but from Sydney, from UNSW, he emailed me this link and he said, what you really need to do is have 3 different levels of all your bubbles. And this time I lost it. And I said, well, you realise how much insane level of work that is. Do you want help doing that? And he was like, no, I just wanted to do the idea. And so I immediately dismissed the idea, but then found myself thinking about the concept more and more, because for 2 reasons. One was because it's always been a challenge with skeptical science what level we need to write at. If we go at the more intermediate level, then it goes over the heads of people who don't understand science in the first place. And if we go at a more basic level, then it's of no use for people who are engaged with the issue, who want to deepen their understanding. And so I realized that writing multiple levels was a way to have your cake and eat it too. The other thing was, at this point, it was 2010, I've been running skeptical science for about 3 years, and I've been trying to get people to help me run the website, create all this content, try to write regular responses to the fire and content postings that will be posted on the internet. And whenever people would approach me and say they appreciate the site or email me a positive comment about the site, I would ask them if they were interested in helping. Cue the sound of running footsteps at the door slam and kind of going on. It was really hard to find people to want to help do this effort. But I could see that having a specific tangible task like trying to take the existing content and create multiple levels had the potential to possibly recruit people to help to run skeptical science and create all this content. So I posted published a blog post on skeptical science, which was essentially a call to action. I said, real time, I suggested this idea of multiple levels. And currently, skeptical science is written at an intermediate. But does anyone think that they can take my existing intermediate photos and translate them into plain English or a much simpler, accessible version of the text? And overnight, we got several dozen people volunteered to help write all these photos. And it was actually quite overwhelming in a way. I think that period of trying to do what keep up with this surge of enthusiasm. At the time, I told people that I was calling the bags under my eyes Gavin and Schmidt. And then I was at a conference and Gavin Schmidt came up to me and said, I heard you've been calling bags under your eyes. I didn't realize that got out. That was all. But reflecting on it, I think that I learned something about behaviour change. How do you achieve behaviour change? And I think this has a broader application to climate change in general. Two of the ingredients you need to persuade people to change their behaviour is this. Firstly, giving them a task that they can see themselves doing, a simple, straightforward task. And secondly, giving them a task that they see can make a difference. People were looking at the intermediate bubbles that I've written and thinking, I think I can get out of that. But they also could see that having plain English versions of these bubbles could really make a difference. Could make climate science accessible to the general public and help provide resources for people who are trying to counter this information. And so, instantly, like overnight, I had to deal with all this enthusiasm, all these volunteers, and how to harness this momentum. So I quickly threw together an online forum for the authors to collaborate and contribute to. And immediately there was dozens of different bubbles, within a week or two, up on the forum. And then we had to control the flow of information. There's all this activity. How do we channel it and control? And so I added essentially our version of a peer review system. People will click on the link, read the rebuttal on the forum, and either post comments, suggestions, suggested edits, or if they thought it was good enough, they would give it a green thumb. And we found that once a rebuttal had gotten around half a dozen green thumbs, it was generally ready for publication, and we published it online. So what we were doing was really combining like social media and peer review, and it was quite a powerful way to provide high quality content in a very fast pace. And so we started publishing multiple levels of bubbles. We started by pressing basic versions, and then we steadily started adding advanced bubbles as well. And we took Gavin's idea of the T-split, basic, green circle, the blue square, and the black diagram. And so what that allows people to do is go to the level that they're comfortable with, depending on how familiar they are with the topic. And then if they want, they can then go up levels to deepen their understanding. The next thing that happened in terms of people approaching me with suggestions on how to make climate science more accessible to the public was when some software developers from Melbourne approached me. They were owners of a company, and they said that they were very passionate about climate change and offered to take all the rebuttals of spectral science and put them in an iPhone app. I actually created this like in about 2010, and now that I look at that phone, it kind of looks like a shortcut trick. At the time, it was super cool. And so this was quite a straightforward process. We had all our rebuttals in database form. It was just a matter of creating, from my end, it was a matter of just creating a feed, and then they did their iOS app development, pulled all that data, poured it into the phone, and we released the iPad app. And the idea of it was, if you were having like lunch with a family member who was dismissive about climate science, or even walking down the street and a climate denier jumped off a dark alley, you could do a search for the particular climate myth that you encountered. It'll give you all the relevant myths, and then you could go to a more detailed debunking of that myth, as well as get into closer looking at all the visualizations that we included within the book. So it was a way of making climate science more accessible, actually putting it into different context. Now, the next thing I want to talk about was probably the most impactful feedback I've ever gotten about climate communication, and it ended up actually being a life-changing email. I received an email from a cognitive scientist from Western Australia who researched the psychology of discrimination. And he emailed me saying that, or asking me had I looked at any of the psychological research into debunking of misinformation, which I haven't. And he said, and he had attached the paper to the email. And so I started reading this paper. And what it did was it tested different ways of debunking debunk myths in the wrong way, you could actually reinforce them. Okay? Even though they're reading a debunking of a myth, they could actually come away from it believing the myth even more than before they read the debunking. And I was reading this paper, and I was looking at the example of their debunking, and then I was looking at my debunking, and I realized that they were committing all the same mistakes. I was doing all the things that the bad debunking, putting the emphasis on the myth, making the myth the headline, and what the research found was when all the emphasis was on the myth, and think of how many fact-checking web pages or articles or pamphlets you read where the myth is the headline at the top of the page. When people see that, then they might read the whole thing, they might understand it, accept it, stop believing the myth, but then they go away. Over time, the details fade. And the danger is that they might only remember the headline. And that's what this research found. And so it was usually I read climate papers, and I have that, if it's a really serious climate paper, I might feel the sort of sense of or fear. This is the first case I've read a social science paper. It was actually the first social science paper I read, where I distinctly remember reading it with blood running into my face, and I was thinking, my God, I might be making things worse. And so I started diving into the literature, the psychological research into debunking and science communication. And what I learned was that when people, well, the way people build an understanding of the world is they build these mental models. And in our mental models, there are lots of different interlocking elements with causal relationships between A causes B, B causes C. So like A causes B, B causes C. But what happens if B is wrong? What happens if B is met? And then what happens if you tell people B is met? So you say, hey, that part of your mental model, B, that actually is based on this information. What you do then is you create a gap. But that creates a gap in their mental model. And people aren't comfortable with gaps in their mental models. They actually prefer a complete mental model that's less accurate to an incomplete mental model that's more accurate. And so what researchers have found is when they debunk misinformation and people have shown in surveys afterwards that they understand the rebuttal, they accept it, they stop believing the myth. But then over time, they come to continue to believe the myth. Like it's like pulling the weed out and then the weeds grow back. And so this idea that misinformation continues to influence people, they're very imaginatively called that the continued influence effect. And it's based on this idea that people don't like gaps in their mental models. And so the consequence of that is quite clear. It means that not only do you need to explain to people how misinformation is wrong, you also need to fill the gap that you just created with a replacement fact. I used to, until 2017, I used to say, fill the gap with an alternative fact, but that phrase has been taken over by Kelly Conway. So now I call it the factual replacement. And so I could talk for hours about all the decades of psychological research into debunking, but really probably the key thing, if there's one thing I want you to remember about psychology debunking from this lesson, would be this sequence. Fight sticky myths with stickier facts. One of the most effective things you can do to try to counter misinformation is think about what gaps you create in their mental models, in their causal relationships, and think about what replacement facts will slide into that gap and meet all the same causal explanations. If you're telling people the sun isn't causing global warming, well, then you need to explain, well, what is it? And researchers have found that this principle applies in a whole range of contexts. A simple example is when they've done experimental studies with mock trials, and you have like the accused suspect. It's not enough just to explain, well, this guy is innocent because here is all the evidence that proves that he couldn't do it. People still suspect him, and they think that he may have committed the crime, unless you provide an alternative suspect. You need to provide that post fact. So, having learned that, the next thing I need to do is go back to skeptical science and reformat the content so that it was more consistent with what the psychology best practices were saying. So the first thing to do was replace the heading which repeated the myth with the replacement fact that I wanted to disclose. The next thing was put more emphasis on the replacement fact. And so I took those one-word summaries that Canadian physicists provided and put those top. So fact, repeat the fact before introducing the myth, and then the debunking evidence. And so I talked about this idea of fighting sticky myths with sticky facts. The next question then is, well, how do you make your facts? How do we communicate sticky science? And I won't go into too much detail on that, but I will recommend, if you're interested in being an effective communicator, I found this book incredibly useful, Maybe Stick. And what they do is they go through a whole range of sticky stories or stories or advertising campaigns or sayings, and they try to find what do these different sticky messages have in common. And they all share some of these six traits. They're all simple. They often take people by surprise. They need to be credible, so come from credible sources. They need to be concrete. They need to evoke an emotional response, or they're more likely to be shared or remembered if they evoke an emotional response. And we remember information in the form of stories. So if you can communicate your science in the form of a narrative and a story, then it's more likely to be remembered and shared. Yeah? Sure.
All right. I'm wondering if there's like studies, like when they put in like flyers and stuff. I'm interested if y'all done like testing to communicate like the sticky facts versus the myths and how the brain reacts.
Right. I've actually I was talking to someone who does research like that recently. Although she's more doing MRIs, which is similarly scanning the brain, but where they put people in tubes and they actually run these experiments where they'll put people in tubes and then there's a little tiny screen right in front of their face. Because these tubes, you don't have much room in them, all upstairs. And then I'll show them messages and I'll measure what's happening in their brain while they're viewing these messages. So that research is being done. Super expensive though. Like earlier I was talking to students and I was complaining about how expensive it is for me just to do my simple surveys. MRIs are way more expensive. And I only, in terms of doing research like that on disinformation and debugging, I very little. So yeah, like we scientists like to say, more research. So let me give you an example of the other thing I was going to say about this is especially a challenge for people working in climate change, because inherently climate change is almost the opposite of all this. It's complicated, it's abstract, it's as scientists we're trained to kind of take emotion out of how we communicate our scientific results. And essentially, scientists are trained to communicate. So it's often, in order for scientists to be effective in communicating to the general public, it's a bit like what Yoda said. You must unlearn what you we have to kind of almost learn how to become human again, and find ways to take abstract, complicated, nuanced topics and break them down to simple, concrete concepts that the general public can grasp, not only grasp, but respond to, resonate. It's a challenge, but having frameworks like this are a good starting point. So let me give you an example. Here is an argument that was presented the day after the US pulled out of the Paris climate accords. And the argument was one of the justifications for the US pulling out of the climate agreement was that climate or global warming has stopped since the late 1990s. Usually when scientists respond to this argument, they'll respond with these kind of arguments that to properly understand climate change, we need to look at long periods, and looking at a short period is significant. It's not a meaningful scientific statement to say that global warming doesn't happen over a short period. And that's not a good example of trying to fight sticky myths with sticky facts. We need to find concrete, simple ways of responding to myths. And so I find that a really powerful way to make abstract science concrete is use of analogies. And why analogies and metaphors are so useful is because you're basically piggybacking off the American use of analogies. I find there's a lot of words I use that people just look at me blankly. What are you talking about? All right. So you're basically piggybacking off existing models. You don't have to explain everything from scratch. So I tried communicating the fact that global warming is still happening and has been still happening since the late 1990s by looking at the total heat content in our climate system. I think the number is something like our planet has been building up heat since over the last few decades at a rate of about 250 trillion joules per second, which kind of means nothing to people. What does that number even mean? So it's equivalent to 4 atomic bombs, or at least 4 atomic bombs per second. So I was asked to give a protesting about environmentalism. They want to have a nerd at the start of the day to talk about why were they doing all this protesting in the first place. So I was the nerd asked to do the science talk at the start of the day before they got to all the fun stuff. So I got up, showed a whole bunch of slides and graphs, talked about the carbon cycle and the greenhouse effect and lots of data. And then all the environmentalists got up and gave their talks. There were lots of woos and screams during their talks. No one wooed during my talk. But the next day, a newspaper reported about the conference, and this was the headline that they made. And so out of all the different talks, they picked this one slide and the emphasis. And the thing was, I wasn't presenting new science. I was just taking existing, well-established science and communicating and using an analogy. And then over the next few days, that article got syndicated and published in a whole range of newspapers around the world in a range of different languages. And what I took from that was that it's worth the effort to take the time to try to communicate our science in simple ways. And often as people trying to do public engagement, we're looking for bells and whistles. What are the ways that we can use Twitter and Facebook and even technical ways to try to go viral? But if you don't invest the thought and time in just trying to doing the basics of communicating the science in simple, complex ways, then all those bells and whistles kind of meaningless. Some people didn't like the metaphor though. They thought it was like I mentioned emotion was one of the 5 traits of sticky messages. They thought it was a little bit too evocative, too shocking. And so with my tongue firmly in cheek, I gave a talk at the AGU board meeting, and I presented an alternative analysis. And so I thought, well, this is guaranteed to offend no one. And then the next week, this was published. Kitten sneezes are even worse than the comic book. And the reasoning behind this article was that if you calculate the number of kitten sneezes and the number of kittens in the world, each kitten would have to be sneezing at 100 million times a second, which would vaporize every kitten in the world. So I was basically advocating the annihilation of every kitten in the world. And this is my favorite part of but, I guess what I take from that is so that's all I want to say about sticky science, trying to communicate our messages in a sticky, compelling way. Yes?
Can you go back to your 6-point sticky slide? Just wanted to note that what you've listed there is also the ideal contents of a newspaper article. So that presumably the press is always looking for sticky stories. And so by framing it in a sticky way, you've also made it press friendly.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think that anecdote I gave about the Australian writing an article about it really illustrates that point. And I will add too that the Australian is a Murdoch-owned paper. It's really our version of Wall Street Journal, or maybe even more like a paper version of Fox News. So you know, they've published articles backing my research, backing climate science. So for them to publish what was essentially positive press coverage of reality of climate change was quite was surprising. So let's assume we can communicate our science in such a way. The next challenge is that's actually only half the job, because even if we do manage to communicate our science perfectly functioning, sticky, compelling, simple, newsworthy way, all that effort can be cancelled out by this information. So research done at George Mason University before I got there, they tested what happens when people see different messages. They tested what happens when people are informed that there's 97% agreement amongst climate scientists that humans are causing global warming. They also tested what happens when people receive misinformation that casts doubt on the scientific consensus. And this is an article that was actually the most shared article in 2015 about climate change on social media. So it wasn't something by the IPCC or the National Climate Assessment or any shocking climate science paper. It was a conspiracy theory article saying that 30,000 scientists disagree and think it's this is what people are saying. And as an aside, my colleagues tested this misinformation as well as a half dozen other types of climate misinformation, and this was the one that had the most effect in reducing acceptance of climate change. It's not only out there and widespread, it's also potent forms. And so what they did was they tested what happens when people receive facts, when they're informed that there's 97% consensus. It has a strong positive effect on not only perceived consensus of climate change, but also it has flow-on effects to increasing acceptance of global warming and increasing support for climate change. When people received the misinformation about the 31,000 signatories on a petition, that reduced perceived consensus and climate acceptance. But when people receive both, they cancel each other. And this is one of those results that are statistically insignificant but highly significant, because it means that all our efforts, no matter how fine-tuned and sticky they are, can be cancelled out by misinformation. And so the reason why this is because, and there was a show back in the mid-20th century called Star Trek, you may not have heard of, but every couple of episodes they would have a episode where Captain Kirk, would get cloned, and there'll be a real Kirk and a fake clone Kirk, and Mr. Spock would have to try to figure out the real Kirk from the fake Kirk. And that's the dilemma that people face when they're presented with real news and fake news. How do they tell the difference which is real and which is fake? And if they can't tell, if they don't have the tools or the information, then there's that danger that they'll disengage, and that's what their data found. And so then they tested what is a way to remedy this condition? How do we give people the tools to be able to resolve that conflict between fake news and real news, between fact and myth? And to do that, they looked at a branch of psychological research called inoculation theory. This research takes the analogy of vaccination but applies it to knowledge. Just as with vaccination, when you expose people to a weak form of the disease, that helps them build up immunity so that they don't get infected with being carried with the real disease. What half a century of psychological research has found is that if you expose people to a weak form of misinformation, that builds up immunity so that when they encounter the actual misinformation, they don't get infected. So what I mean by a weak form of misinformation is presenting the misinformation to you, but in a way that you're delivering it in a weaker state. Firstly, you're warning them of the threat they might be misled, and secondly, providing counter-arguments explaining how that misinformation is wrong. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Daniel Kahneman's slow and fast thinking, system 1 and system 2 thinking. Really, the human brain operates on two levels. We on one sense, we're emotional and very fast thinking. We make instant judgments about situations in milliseconds before we even realise we've done it. On the other hand, we can also be slow thinking and reasoning and thinking through issues and trying to apply cognitive effort to solve problems. Unfortunately, the fast thinking does almost all the work, and often the slow thinking, the reasoning, is actually just trying to justify the decisions that our fast brain has already made. But what inoculation does, why it's so elegant, is because it actually addresses both types of thinking. Like the warning of the threat is really a way of warning our fast thinking brain that there is a threat that we don't be misled, which people that are instant emotional level love. But then providing the counter-argument also gives them the logic, the critical thinking, the information that they need to critically think through arguments. And so here's an example, an excerpt of the inoculating message that they presented. Basically, they use counter-arguments to explain how this 31,000 petition misled people. Firstly, it was an online petition, so anyone could sign up any name into it. And so they found that there were lots of fake names, there were Spice Girls, there were Star Wars characters, and characters from MASH. There was no quality control on it. Secondly, 31,000 does seem like a large number, but these were anyone with a science graduate. And there are millions of people with science graduates in the US. And so it was like a tiny fraction, less than 1% of the potential pool of science graduates. And 31,000 therefore not as impressive as one initially seemed. And thirdly, and most importantly, I think, 99.9% of those 31,000 people did not have expertise in science. Because it was anyone with a science degree, it could be in any field of science, whether it was veterinary science or computer science or mechanical engineering fields, but only 0.1% of the signatories were climate experts. And so after people received this inoculating message, email was shown disinformation that trying to persuade them that there was no consensus, as well as the 97%. And what they found then was that the negative influence of the information was mostly neutralized. That by inoculating people, it allowed the facts to have the problem. At the same time that I was doing this research, I was conducting similar research in Australia, and I was finding the same result. Inoculating people preemptively by explaining the techniques used to mislead neutralize misinformation. And so, having conducted this research and having this finding that inoculation was a way to neutralize misinformation, the next thing I was exploring was, well, how do you put that into practice? What next? And I started working with some critical thinking philosophers at the University of Queensland to start exploring how critical thinking was key to developing inoculation messages. And the reason why critical thinking is so powerful is because it offers essentially X-ray vision. It allows you to see what people are thinking when they make arguments. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Here was an argument that Marco Rubio made during the 2016 Republican primaries, when he was asked about the question about climate policy. And if you watch the video, just immediately there's a huge loud applause after he delivered that line. What critical thinking allows you to do is take a statement like that and really methodically assess, is this true or is it not? If it isn't, why is it true? Or why is it not valid? So critical thinking takes statements and breaks them up into an argument structure. And every argument consists of starting assumptions, premises, and a conclusion. And once you do that, then you can surgically identify any place where that argument might go wrong, if it does go wrong. In this case, the starting premises don't logically lead to the conclusion, which is known as a non sequitur, which is Latin for it does not follow. The conclusion does not follow from the premises. Or I usually use the phrase jumping to conclusions because not many people speak Latin. So what I do with these critical thinking philosophers is we developed a flowchart for analysing arguments. You deconstruct it, it should be up at my slides. Check whether it's logically valid, does the conclusion follow in the premises? And if it isn't, like the example before, then we establish that the argument is valid. If it is valid, then check whether the premises are true. And then if they are, then the argument is at least sound. And we went through that process with 50 of the most common myths about climate change, which allowed us to develop a resource, a list of all the different analyses included by the most common myths about climate change. And my goal with doing this research was to provide a resource that could be used for inoculated messages in response to misinformation, or even to preemptively inoculate people before they see misinformation. So pulling all this together, I'm going to take 5 more minutes. Sorry, I'm getting close. There's really 3 elements to an effective response to misinformation, to an effective fact check. Most important is identifying that fact, communicating the facts in clear, simple, compelling, sticky ways. If you're debunking a myth, you do need to mention the myth. You need to mention it so that people can tag it as false. But you also should warn people before mentioning it, so that they're cognitively on guard and less likely to believe inadvertently. And thirdly, because you've presented a fact and a myth, there's two conflicting pieces of information. You need to help people resolve the conflict. And explaining the fallacy or the technique that the misinformation uses to distort the facts helps people resolve the conflict. I developed this structure and I was thinking that I invented something original myself, and I was explaining to someone and they said, that sounds a lot like Socrates' hypothesis, antithesis. And I was like, gosh. So, and it turns out everything that I think that I've invented, someone probably came up with 2,000 years ago or longer. Although it wasn't Socrates, it was actually German philosophy. So, still 700. So the next step then is critical thinking is a way to produce inoculating material. Then how do we practically get it out? How do we scale it up and get it to enough people that this makes a difference and shift the needle? And I've become increasingly convinced that education is not only the most effective way to achieve lasting effect, but it's also a powerful way to reach this broad spread of the population as well. And this is one of my favourite quotes about the value of education, because ultimately the research I'm doing, inoculation and critical thinking, it's about people's right to be actively informed and freedom from the I think education is critical to accomplish that. And ways that we're doing that, we've developed a massive open online course which can reach potentially unlimited numbers of people. We've had, about 40,000 people sign up for our MOOC today from about 185 countries. And what this MOOC does is it addresses those 50 most common climate myths. And with every myth, we have a short 7-minute video divided into the stack of myth analysis. Present the relevant climate facts, explain science, introduce the myth with a warning, and then resolve the conflict between the two by explaining the fallacies of the themselves. And lastly, everything I've been talking about so far is passive inoculation, which means communicating, explaining the techniques of denial to an audience who passively receives that information. But there's a new line of research it's only been, I've only seen it really happening over the last couple of years, that's trying to use those same principles but in a more active form, where rather than having the recipients passively receive information, get them actively, interactively learning the techniques used in mislead in order to inoculate. And so the approach that we're developing at the moment, we're going to be testing later this year, is using mobile games to actively inoculate climate misinformation. And so the idea of it is, in this game, your goal is to become a climate denying cranky uncle. And so to become a cranky uncle, and FYI, that is not Michael Oppenheimer, that is a completely original, fictitious character. Common and so what this game does is people will learn these general techniques and they have to interactively form these types of logical fallacies, and then it gives them feedback so that they learn the general technique, and then it applies that same technique to climate misinformation and common forms. I think this was earlier this year, when there was cold weather, and someone was tweeting that it's cold weather happened global warming, and it's an example of climate theory. So that's all. But if we have time, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Chris. Go ahead. So this is our research. for promoting people from latching on to part of it?
Yeah, that's a hard question. So I think that generally, though, like there's various different reasons why people might not want to believe climate change, and if it's those reasons, it's it's a scary reason, or they have trouble accepting the reality of it, or it's too unpleasant. I think that I was talking about how our science communication needs to be kind of twofold. Communicate science, but also include the critical thinking. All this applies to one very sort of specific context, which is responding to climate change. More broadly, just talking about climate communication in general, I think that it also needs to be twofold. We need to communicate the problem with climate change, but it's crucially important that we also communicate the possible solutions. Because if you just tell people doom and gloom and here's this problem and humans suck and it's terrible, that can actually paralyze people and cause them to cause a denial response as well. So we need to package that with saying we're the cause of the problem, but we can also solve this problem. And here are solutions that are being developed. Here are existing efforts that are happening. Here are ways that we can contribute. And like I said earlier in the talk, giving people efficacy, giving them tasks they can see themselves doing, that make a difference. If they don't have that efficacy, then they're either going to go into denial or just dissipate.
So increasingly, the news that we receive is becoming more and more individualized. For example, my news feed on my Facebook page might be completely different from my family. So my question is, how do we reach those people who have their news feed tailored to them so that they are receiving?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have the same question myself, and I think that the ideal way to reach people within a certain community is to be part of that community, or at least to share the same values of that community. And I was speaking to a guy who works in climate communication, who was really good conservative. He was telling me conservatives can smell liberal. And in fact, Ed Maver, who's my master, he's done research where he's tested different frames of climate communication, such as national security framing, and he found that conservatives just got angry when liberal pointy-headed academics were trying to use the language or the framing of conservatives. So I think that I'm not sure that I'm answering the question. I think finding messengers who belong to that community, it's probably people in every aspect.
You've done a lot of stuff with volunteers from the web, and you mentioned some of that. Do you know the demographics of those volunteers, and why aren't there hundreds of thousands of senior citizens that are willing to do something like this that is meaningful?
Why do we only have a few dozen volunteers in science and not hundreds of thousands?
Right.
Well, I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of people working on climate solutions in lots of different ways. And this is one way, and a very incredibly nerdy way of doing it. So I think it takes a specific kind of skill set and constitution, I think, to be able to deal directly with climate denial. And I guess the broader answer to that question is I think there's so many different ways that people can contribute to this issue, and it doesn't have to be like if anyone does want to help us with this, please email me, because we're always looking for more people. But I think that what I'm increasingly trying to do now is find things that are unique that I can do and apply that to the climate situation, like cartoons and iOS app development and critical thinking and debugging. You know, combine those 4 different things in a unique way. We all are good at something, or we all like something specific that's unique to us. Combining those in ways that is unique and valuable, I think, are powerful ways that we can all contribute to climate change. And in the end, what we all need to do to make a difference is just talk about climate change, break climate targets. I think the statistic is 51% of Americans are either concerned or alarmed about climate change, but most of them don't talk about preventing it. So finding ways for us to even just to have a conversation or post about it or talk about it, but even better, find ways to do it that is unique to us to make a difference.
Well, I have a question. I think wondering this idea of this checking the argument, can that be applied to more technical figures and how?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I talked about today are general principles that can apply to a whole range of topics. And we're actually applying it to vaccination disinformation at the moment, and finding that it's actually more effective in the vaccination realm than in climate. So yeah, it certainly can be applied in a whole range of topics. But I'll tell you one place that I advise you to apply it in, and that's in arguments with your partner. I've never applied a honey, you're committing the fallacy of partner. That's just entering the world.
Okay, with that partner advice, we're going to finish that part, and we'll do